Hi everyone. Hello equestrians. Only just started. Already have a comment. I love your comment. Thank you so much. Yay. Super excited when I get stuff like that. Let me just adjust the little camera here. Today is the Q&A session with me. So if you happen to be live, I would love it if you could comment where in the world you are watching this from. I know we have an actual international group, so please feel free to comment in the chat, where you are watching from in the world. And I would love to hear from you guys. I do have a few questions today, which people have submitted to me. And also please, comment in the chat at any time, any questions that you have on any topic. I do have a couple of themed questions today, but if there's something that, a topic or something which I haven't actually discussed in any of my posts or things, then yeah, feel free to comment again in the chat and then I will address those questions. I'm always happy. I got a few emails recently of some questions, some really good questions. And then also one of the topics which I have been discussing this week has been the topic of, how do you answer the question, what riding level am I? And this has been a really fun topic. I mean, I've got so many comments. There was I think 600 different people commenting in that. And it was a lot of fun to see. Thank you very much, A Green Planet. And hello, sitting in India. That's great. So yeah, please comment, where in the world are you watching this from? I love to hear, we're such an international group. And then comment, if you have any questions. So yeah, today is going to be very casual. Like I said, the topic today is kind of the theme of this talk, which I've been posting about, which is how do you know what riding level you are and what ability you are. And the reason that this topic has come up. So, I shared a story, if you've seen it already, where I worked for a brief period as a trail guide. And it's funny, I was always a show jumper. I didn't even know that trail guiding was a job. Nobody told me, but I accidentally got a job in Romania working as a trail guide. And I had this kind of realization that every weekend we would get new guests coming to ride, on these trails. And it happened so many times where someone would look me in my face, look into my eyes and tell me that they were super advanced riders or really experienced riders. And then, advanced rider means they'd had 2 riding lessons, and super experienced rider meant that they'd seen the movie Hidalgo, or, you know what I mean? So it happened a lot. Every weekend I would look at these people in their eyes. I would ask, what's their riding abilities? And they would always lie or really exaggerate it. And this is something that you see a lot in the industry, not just, with tourists, but you see it a lot, when I would go to give riding lessons or things like that. We got a few comments here, so thank you so much. I love hearing things like that. So from India, that's awesome. Super international group. I absolutely love this. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me from all around the world. So anyways, this kind of topic, it happens very frequently in the group that somebody will tell you that they're very experienced with horses. I've had this happen a lot as well, even when I was hiring staff to come and work at the stables. And it's really difficult, because of a lot of the countries that I was working in, it's all, online job applications, and to kind of sift through their resumes or, read between the lines, it's actually an art, because for some reason, I don't know what it is, when it comes to horses and when it comes to riding, a lot of us genuinely don't know what level we're at. And we have a hard time, I think, being honest with ourselves and with others. And I think the reason that so many of us are hard to, set aside that ego is, the ego is designed to protect us. We don't want to seem vulnerable. And, especially in the equestrian space, everyone's judging everyone all the time, even if you're not in a horse show. And, the second that you say you can ride a horse, suddenly everyone's kind of comparing to you because everyone wants to be the best rider in the barn, kind of a thing. So, I get it. And there's, I think, a lot of fear behind admitting, that you are fear, or maybe you're not that confident, or you used to ride when you were younger, maybe 20 years ago, you were a fabulous, brave little rider. And then it's been, some time has passed, or suddenly you have kids or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're ooh, oh, it's just like riding a bike, or some of the fears or worry comes back into play. And I remember when I was working at that trail stables, The people that would come to me, obviously the non-horse riders are usually the worst ones. The horse riders are usually pretty okay, but we still have a hard time, I think, admitting. And I remember some of the non-horse riders, they were all talk. And then as soon as they sat on the horse, and it's like they realized how far away the ground was, suddenly their fears kicked in. And the great thing about horses is they're so honest. They are the ultimate lie detector. So, whenever I'm working with a new student and I'm giving them a lesson, they might have a resume a mile long. They might have been riding for 20 years or 40 years. They might have owned horses their whole life. But the second they're on a horse and they're, in a lesson with me, that horse is going to rat them out. And I'm going to know instantly their riding level and their experience, because if they're nervous or this or that, like the horse is going to tell on them. They are the ultimate lie detectors. So, in today's topic, I just wanted to sort of mention, how can we assess as riders? So somebody is asking, can you share experiences in India? I definitely have a lot of stories. If there's something specific that you want to hear about, definitely type it into the chat there. In India, it was an interesting country because, again, I'm a woman, and there's not very many ladies that are riding there. And so I had a lot of macho men. And in India, there's a lot of people that learned how to ride via the military. Like all of these men, they learned, by their military colonels or something like that. And so you get a lot of like testosterone in these macho men. And a lot of them had a hard time, some of the older ones, especially, the older kind of retired military colonels, they had a hard time accepting the fact that even though I was, half their age, I was 22, I think, when I lived in India, 22, 23, they had a hard time letting go of their ego and admitting to themselves that they were doing things wrong. Even though they've been riding their whole lives, they were doing a lot of things wrong and very not good for the horses. They were used to using a lot of very horrible bits, a lot of, kind of brute force and like puffing up the chest. And I remember I had an experience in India where there was this horse that we had. Her name was Beauty. She was an absolutely beautiful horse. She was black Marwari, the ears touching. She's a gorgeous horse. I loved her. And I remember she had never had shoes on before. And she wasn't, really trained. They'd only really used her for breeding. And all of a sudden they wanted to make her a lesson horse. And so I was in charge of the riding program there. And I remember there was like 3 grooms, and they were having a hard time getting her to stand still for a farrier to put shoes on. And she was like rearing and striking out, and she was like so wound up. And I remember I walked in and I saw this scene and I was horrified. And so I ran over and I actually grabbed her like lead rope from the men. And all of the men start shouting at me like, "No, she's dangerous, madam. Like, be careful, be careful." And I was like furious with them. So I didn't say anything, and I just grabbed her and I just started playing with her. I started playing with her for like 5-10 minutes, just making her brain work, walk, stop, halt, breathing, like walk, stop, halt. And I made her just so focused on me. She relaxed very quickly. And, I stood there with her and I was like, okay, bring the farrier over. She's ready. And sure enough, the farrier comes and he shoes her and she doesn't even blink, doesn't even bat an eye. She was like a puppy. And I remember all of the men who had been kind of wrestling with her earlier, they all kind of stared at me and they were like, what voodoo is this? Like, what magic did you just do to this horse? And they couldn't really understand it. And so after that moment, I had several of the grooms kind of approach me afterwards, and they're really shy, because again, I'm a woman, I'm half their age, and I'm in charge of them. But that, that kind of piqued their curiosity, because obviously, I didn't have a whip. I wasn't like wrestling with the horse. I was really just super gentle. They couldn't even see what I was asking her to do, but she was obviously following me. And the men kind of pulled me aside afterwards, and they were kind of like, "Can you maybe teach me how you did that?" So, it was such a great experience. So yeah, I was very grateful that I got to do that. So yes, it was a Marwari horse, and she was absolutely beautiful. Her name was Beauty for a reason. So yeah, hopefully that satisfies your India stories for today. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please comment in the chat at any time and I will definitely answer them. So again, how do you kind of assess your riding level and your riding ability? And I have a lot of people, one of the first things that they said to me, on this topic was, well, I don't know what level I'm at because I haven't had any formal training. Like, I don't know how to do a flying lead change, but I know how to stay on a a bucking horse, or you know what I mean, something like that. Or I've worked with green horses, but I don't know how to do a dressage show. So, you know, what does that mean for me? Like, am I a good rider? Am I not a good rider? Like, what does that mean? And for me, I think this is a very interesting topic. And the biggest thing that I want to say is there's definitely a lot of things with horses which are very universal. Okay, it doesn't matter which country you are. Horses, they speak one language, you know, they speak horse. And so if you know that language, then you can communicate with them and you can probably get really good results with the horses that you're working with, and you can calm them down, or you can, you know, do things with them that maybe non-riders wouldn't be able to do, obviously. So, you know, in this discussion, I don't want you to feel like, oh, I don't have a €500,000 show jumping horse, so I guess I'm not that good, because that's not the case. When I first started taking lessons when I was quite young, I was one of those sort of naturally talented riders. And at that time, you know, I went through like 5 or 6 trainers. I couldn't really find a riding instructor that was very good. I was very limited based on my budget and where I was living. There wasn't any access to horses. So for a long time, you know, I was taking riding lessons twice a month. I had some natural talent. I was going to little jumping shows, jumping 3-foot jumps or 3-foot courses and things. But I definitely, there was a lot of things I was missing as far as technical things. So what I will say is when it comes to the technical things, those are things that people can learn, okay? Those are learned skills. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, I don't know how to do a lead change. That means I'm, you know, I don't know how to ride. You know, those are something that you can definitely learn. And the horse that you're riding can also learn. So, you know, up to some extent, up to a certain level, you know, you might not be able to teach a miniature horse to jump 1.60 meters, but if you can ride a horse and you can stay on and you are comfortable and you're in control of your body and your balance and you're not hanging on the horse's reins, you can get your horse to stretch and be relaxed. That goes a really long way. And, you know, you could definitely learn a lot of skills. If you are a balanced rider, then that will carry over into every discipline and in every sport. So that's why, you know, me, I'm a show jumper. I have a pretty solid base as a show jumper. And obviously as show jumping, we have to learn dressage. So I have a very solid dressage base. I've ridden a lot of Grand Prix dressage horses and Grand Prix show jumping horses. So because I had that solid foundation, you know, when I went to play polo for the first time or try riding Western horses or whatever, even though the saddle might have felt a little bit funny and there was a few things, obviously, which was very discipline specific, I was able to kind of manage and cope with it and still go and play and have a good time because, you know, my balance was there. So if you are a balanced rider, a confident rider, and like I said, you know how to ask the horse to be relaxed and kind of move with you, and you don't lose your balance no matter what the horse is doing. So even if the horse is a little bit more hot, a little bit more energetic, or if it's a lazier horse, you know, you are able to ride it, walk, trot, canter, and stay balanced throughout everything. So yeah, I think that's a good starting point, definitely. So I do have a question here. How do you find fundings for traveling around the world on horseback? That's a great question. And then also any plan to visit India. So I lived in India for 2 years. I kind of saw a lot of India. I don't have any plans to return to India after that. I think I had my India adventures. But as far as this question for finding funding, so I've always worked professionally. I'll just adjust the camera a little bit. I've always worked professionally with horses. I'm a certified coach, a certified trainer. So I've always worked professionally with horses. So if I'm going to a country to work with horses, then it's fully funded. You know, the job is paying for my flights, and obviously they provide me a place to stay, and they pay my salary and all of these different things. So money for me has never been an issue, just because everything is funded, and I have, you know, a salary. I have fees that I charge if somebody wants private lessons or things like that, or maybe I travel for a clinic or just a variety of things. So there's a lot of times where I travel, and you know, it's not coming out of my pocket if I'm traveling for work. So hopefully that answers your questions. And then any favorite horse breeds and why is that my favorite? That's a hard question because I've gotten to ride a whole lot of amazing breeds and horses. And there's something I think special about riding a breed which is local or indigenous to that country, you know, riding Arabian horses in the Middle East, or riding Marwari horses in India, or Icelandic horses, you know. It's a lot of fun to kind of experience the local culture based on the type of horses that you're riding. So my favorite horse breeds, I am a show jumper at heart, so I absolutely love any type of big warm blood horses for show jumping. I never get tired of that. And then I do love, these little kind of fiery horses. Like I love, I have a little part Arabian mare. She's so much fun. So I have a lot of fun with her. And then, I loved riding the Marwari horses when I was in India. They're a very special breed. And then obviously Mongolian horses. They are little machines and I enjoyed riding them. And then one of my other favorites would be the Bhutanese ponies of Bhutan. I love those horses. So yeah, thank you for those questions. So hopefully that answered your question as far as assessing your riding level. And then one of the other questions that I was asked in an email recently was somebody is working on, the question was basically when I'm like working on turns and corners with my horse, I'm having the issue of kind of dropping my shoulder or bending my rib cage. How do I ride a bit more straight into the corners or into the turns? So what I want to say about that is, so when you are riding a horse, you want to have the feeling of your horse turning in the corners or making circles or different things like a train. Okay, so if you picture a train on railroad tracks, a train is square and they turn like this. Okay, they always turn square. They don't lean. They're not like motorcycles. They don't lean into the turns. They're always square when they turn. So when you're riding, your horse should feel like a train. It should feel more square when you're turning. That definitely will help, the rider if the horse isn't leaning. If the horse is leaning, it might be easy for you to kind of be like a little motorcycle and kind of lean into the turn with them if you're not really able to sort of disconnect from what your horse is doing. But once you have kind of established yourself as a more experienced rider and you're able to influence the horse a little bit more, so even if you're riding a green horse that is kind of motorcycling it a little bit, if you are balanced and straight and kind of making yourself turn like a train, then at some point that will help the horse to kind of meet you, or at least meet you halfway, and they'll start leaning less and less and less and less until one day magically they're more straight. So yeah, when you are riding, the biggest thing I want you to do, and it's awesome if you have the ability to ride on a lunge line, that is definitely the best way that I would suggest, because you can kind of tie your reins in a knot or, remove the reins or, whatever, and you can just focus on you and not think about the horse or where the horse is going. And really, you're just going in a circle and just keep consciously thinking to yourself, like, about your shoulders, like I'm turning like a train. And, even kind of pretend like there's a string lifting you up from the middle of your head, and, just always focus on that and have somebody on the ground to kind of help you out, to guide you if they see that you're starting to lean, like, sit straight, and they just kind of help remind you. If you're riding by yourself and you don't have somebody to help lunge you or something, tell yourself. Actually, it's great. My husband just told me a story the other day. He said that train drivers in Japan, keeping on the train theme, train drivers in Japan, when they are driving trains, they are actually taught and required to say everything that they're doing and point at it. So for example, they have to point at, this light is green, and they have to say it out loud, like, this light is green. And so they have to point and they have to say it. And then they have to point at the next thing and say, this switch is off, or, you know what I mean? Like, whatever the task is, they have to go through each and every single thing, and they have to point to it, and they have to verbally say it out loud. And the reason that I wanted to mention that is because when you're riding, if you don't have somebody with you, you need to kind of be your own mentor. And by saying it, it actually makes your brain start to sort of recognize the feeling that your body is doing. And at some point, your brain is going to make your body try and match what you're saying, okay, even subconsciously. So if you're riding around and you don't have anybody with you, and of course, other people might look at you weird for kind of talking to yourself, but, who cares? But what you need to do is kind of say to yourself, like, Krystal, shoulders back, turn like a train. Just keep saying it to yourself again and again and again. And maybe you do this every day for a week, like, I don't know. But after a week, you'll probably start doing it even before you say it, or, before you even think to say it. And it's just going to start becoming automatic. And at some point, you're not going to have to remind yourself to, turn like a train in the corners anymore, because you're just doing it automatically. So hopefully that helped answer that question. Let's see. So we have another You ride horses on snow, desert, sea, water, track, etc. I'm not sure if that's a question, but yeah, I've ridden horses in the snow and on deserts. I've ridden them on the sea. Yeah, I've also ridden them in water. Yeah, I have been on a racetrack, but I wouldn't say I was racing. I think this was an endurance horse that I was training, and I just kind of took her for a canter around on a kind of gallop track. And just kind of did rounds, just kind of keeping track of my distance and average speed and things like that. So I wasn't racing on a track. That would be a lot of fun though. So yeah, if there's any other questions that anyone has, hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. I will look and see if there are any other questions. We do have a few more minutes if there are. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the questions here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate hearing from you guys. I do want to leave you, if you watch this video later, maybe you didn't have a chance to join me live, then just know you can always reach out to me and send me your questions. Here's my email address as well. If you want to email me, just send me your questions, or maybe even a topic of discussion. If there's something that you are struggling with your horse, I would love to hear about it. So that way I can, try and help you as best as I can. I know obviously in a video chat, I can't quite demonstrate everything. So, we do have the Speaking the Horse Language course. If you haven't already done that, I would definitely suggest to start there, because that course, it's kind of the ABCs, and there's so many riders that they're missing the ABCs. And so I always tell everyone, start with the Speaking a Horse Language course. And then from there, we're going to kind of level up and start doing more masterminds and things like that. But yeah, so this is my email address if you guys want to send me your questions or what struggles you are having with your horses. And I'll just see if there's any other questions for anyone. Adriana says, hi, I loved the train quiz. Thank you so much, Adriana. Hey, so she's in Brazil. Adriana and I have had lots of fun in Brazil together. So thank you, Adriana. But yeah, let me know again if you have any questions, Adriana, or if anyone else there has more questions about anything. It could be, dressage, jumping, a struggle that you're having with your horse. It could be even groundwork things, whatever it is that you guys are feeling like you are struggling with your horses at the moment. Or even if you just want to say hello. I love saying hello. So yeah, thank you, Adriana, for joining me. And thank you very much. I know in India, I think, again, it's super cool, like how international. That's the one thing, when I travel, horses are like everywhere. They're everywhere. And when you go to a country and, you have this love of horses, then so many people, they'll invite you in for tea and they want to hang out with you and talk about horses. And so it's really awesome, how much we can connect with each other as equestrians just because we love horses. So I think that's a super cool thing. So yeah, thank you. Joining me from India and Adriana from Brazil, and so many cool places. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Okay, so it looks like I have another question here. What is the best way to teach your horse tricks? That's an interesting question. So my little mare, Lily, so she's learned a couple of tricks. I had a horse when I was young that I taught him, to give hugs and kisses and to do all kinds of just really cute little things. And, I would say one of the best things is to kind of see what your horse's personality is and kind of observe them. And a lot of times horses will sort of volunteer stuff. And you have to kind of figure out how to capture what it is that they enjoy doing and then, reward them for that. And your reward could be a little treat. It could be just praising them like, oh, you're just the prettiest horse on the face of the earth. So I like to kind of start them with a little bit of treats as motivation, but then I try and kind of wean them off of the treats because obviously I don't want them to be too nippy. So maybe I give them treats in a little bucket or something, just take my fingers out of the equation. But yeah, basically I usually start them with kind of seeing based on the personality of my horse, like, oh, I think that he would love to give kisses, or I think he would love, to do a little bow or something. And then just kind of start going from there, and then have the little treats in the beginning to praise them, but still verbally praise them and like give them scratches and cuddles. And then, once they've kind of started to really seek that praise, then you can kind of wean off of the treats a little bit. And usually it's funny, like when you start teaching them some tricks, a lot of times like the horses, especially the ones who love the attention, like my little mare Lily, she's a little show off diva. When they love the attention, they'll start volunteering that trick even when you didn't ask for it. So teaching the horse the trick is maybe easier than teaching them to like do it on command. Do it not just all the time, anytime they want some attention. But yeah, hopefully that kind of, I know it's a very broad question, but hopefully that helped a little bit. So here's another question. When I was trying to find my riding level, I found it helpful to write down the skills I did know and the ones I felt I did not have a good handle on, then compared my skills to what others thought should be done at certain levels and helped me place myself at a level. Yeah, that's an excellent point, Kara, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because, again, you don't have to necessarily go and ride in, a dressage show or something like that. In order to kind of prove yourself as a rider. There's a lot of riders that I've worked with that they weren't that interested in competing professionally or something like that. But, I had one lady, she started learning to ride in her 50s because her son was riding and he was taking lessons. And instead of her just watching her son, ride for an hour every day, she sort of was like, I'm just going to take lessons at the same time as him. Like, why not? I'm there. So she became my student. And when she first started, she was really nervous in the beginning. She's like, I'm in my 50s. I've never ridden a horse before. She was quite short. I was one of those like stereotypical, like I look like a horse rider. I was very tall, very lean, very thin. I looked like a show jumper. And so she was very self-conscious in the beginning. She was like, I'm short. I have stubby little legs. Like, is this even going to work? I don't know. But she was brave and she started taking lessons with me. And she actually did very well. She had no goal, no intention of ever like jumping or going to a show. But the more that she worked with me, she was able to do all kinds of stuff. She was doing leg yields and this and that. And she had a little horse that she was working with. He was a lovely little horse. He could do all kinds of cute little things. And he was a little Arabian horse. And at one point, my kind of FEI level 2 coach at the time, he was kind of the show jumping, head honcho. He kind of observed her in one of the lessons with me one day. And he was like, I think she's ready. Let's start having her jump. And at first she was really nervous, like, oh, should I try jumping? Like, oh, that sounds scary. My son is doing the jumping. But he was like, no, you're ready. And, she was super balanced at that time because we did a whole lot of like over the saddle sort of balance work. And, her stubby little legs didn't make any difference. She was very balanced, very sturdy, very stable. She wasn't going to come off for anything. And so she did. She started learning some jumps and, again, had no interest in like competing professionally or something like that, but she still decided to do it and to try it because she understood that just learning it was still a valuable skill. And it was just another kind of thing for her to kind of tick off of her little checklist of like, okay, I'm comfortable and able to do little small jumps or do a little small course, and so I think that's great. Kara, when you mentioned your self-evaluation, like I think there is no such thing as ever being done learning when it comes to horses. That's a great thing. Like even the top riders, they have coaches. The Olympic rider, they have coaches. So, there is no such thing as like, oh, I'm done learning. And there's always something that, you might try it on one horse and then you try the same thing on another horse and it doesn't work. So you have to learn like from scratch on this new horse. So, that's the great thing about horses. They are very equalizers. They're going to they're going to tell you honestly what you need to work on and what you are doing very well. So yeah, I thank you again for that little comment. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. Life of Anton, thank you. I'm glad, hopefully my answer helps a little bit. Yeah, cool. So again, I'm just checking to see if there's any more questions and things. So again, feel free to email me or send me a message or something if there are any struggles or challenges that you're facing with your horses. I love talking about new things. Or if there's a topic that you would like to learn more information about, maybe you don't have a specific question, but you're like, hey, I want to learn about leg position or whatever it is. Again, just send me an email. I'll just go ahead and throw that up here. Send me an email, reach out to me, and just let me know. And again, hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's Q&A session. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. So thank you everyone who joined me today, and have a nice rest of your day. Bye.